Hello everyone, welcome to another video with me, Tenchi, talking geeky stuff. And today, you probably guessed, Amblin Entertainment, which is founded by Steven Spielberg. So I want to talk about Steven Spielberg movies. Here are some of most of his movies that I like. Some better than the others, of course. I think Steven Spielberg is probably the most recognized directors of all time. I mean, he made a big mark on me, growing up, watching a lot of his films. Funny thing was, a lot of the films I grew up watching, say, Back to the Future, Goonies, for example, right? Those kind of movies. I used to think they were actually directed by him because you had Steven Spielberg Presents. Because now when you're young, you don't realize, you couldn't tell the difference between director, producer, and so on. So yeah, I think not just me, there was a lot of people my age back then who got confused that he directed. I remember years ago telling someone, yeah, he didn't direct those films. They was quite surprised. But anyway, let's start off with Jaws, I suppose. Jaws was, a classic. It still is. Amazing movie. It made most of the world, when I first watched it back in the day, scared to swim. No, they didn't want to go into the sea. also gave great white sharks a bad name. And I think it was also the first movie which made over $100 million worldwide. Kind of like the first proper blockbuster if you think about it. I remember if anybody watched my 80s movies video, I did mention that I wasn't a big fan of E.T. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind it. I do actually. I know it's pretty cool, but I just didn't think it was the 5 out of 5. The magazines are raving about it. Don't get me wrong. I can understand how people enjoy that, love that, and it's a classic, But for some reason, I just couldn't get into it as much as other people. And I mentioned about that in the 80s video that I prefer Flight of the Navigator, for example. And then let's talk about one of his. If you saw my other video, which is the best trilogies, I did mention that Indiana Jones would have been in my top trilogy choices, but unfortunately, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas decided to make the fourth one, Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, and I hated that movie. I remember hearing a story that there was actually a script was made, and Steven Spielberg liked it. The producers liked it. It was George Lucas who didn't like it, and he decided to go with the current one, which is about the Crystal Skulls. Aliens. Whoops, apologies for anyone who hasn't seen it. Spoiler. I just felt it felt out of place because the first, second, and third it was about history, ancient cultures that kind of myth and legend. I just felt that the fourth one about aliens kind of felt out of place. Not just that, I mean the whole film kind of felt out of place. So that would have been in my top trilogies. Unfortunately, they made a fourth movie and a bad fourth movie as well. So that is one of Steven Spielberg's worst films, along with Hook, starring Robin Williams. I didn't like that much. Only saw it once, to be honest with you, so I don't remember it much. And then another top film is actually one of my favorites by Steven Spielberg. It kind of gave me the kind of feeling of Jaws, but of course I wasn't born when Jaws came out. So, but I did see Jaws. I think 30th or 35th anniversary in cinema. That was amazing. I remember watching that, and that was fantastic. And it actually gave me the scares again, watching Jaws again. But the one I'm talking about, referring to, is Jurassic Park. And if you watch my 90s action movie, I mentioned that Terminator 2 was a pinnacle point in my personal life about what is cinema entertainment versus home entertainment, and the special effects and the atmosphere. I think Jurassic Park was also like that. I remember watching that quite a few times in cinema. Special effects was out of this world. It still is. To this day, it holds up so well. I mean, just that scene with the T-Rex with the car is amazing. Classic scene. One of the best scenes of all time. Yeah, it's based on Michael Crichton novel. Michael Crichton, another great author. Read a lot of his books, and the novel is somewhat different. So that is definitely a top movie. I mean, at that time, it overtook Terminator 2 as the highest grossing film of all time. Initially, when it first released, it was just under the $1 billion mark, but it made over $1 billion for its re-release 20th anniversary, which, again, amazing to watch again. And then he directed the sequel, Lost World, which I really enjoyed. Not as good as the first one, of course, but still an amazing film. So it was a good trilogy, even though the third one was actually okay. I think the third one was directed by, was it Joe Johnston? I need to double check that. So just to let everyone know, I don't really do much research before I just talk. I just go off by memory. I spend most of my time doing all the graphic work, really. I like talking about it spontaneously. So apologies if I do get certain facts wrong. And then, of course, you got more his Steven Spielberg was always known for like kind of kid-friendly movie. You know, he has that kind of like, I don't know how to compare. Maybe like a Nintendo brand. You know, he does all these films for kids, but adults can watch it as well, kind of thing. You know, like, yeah. And so when I watched Schindler's List, it was actually the same year as Jurassic Park got launched. Jurassic Park was a summer movie. Schindler's List was the kind of winter movie or the Oscar movie. Which, did he win best director for that? Well, no, he won a lot of awards, and so that's kind of the first proper serious movie that I watched of his, and I loved it. You know, based on a true story. It was quite scary, as in not scary as in horror scary, but just scary as in, you know, they're saying real life can be scarier than fiction, and it is scary because whatever happened in the movie, you know, actually happened in real life. You know, the darkest ages of the 20th century. So, and people went through that stuff. So it was actually very scary. And you know, Spielberg was not holding any punches back. He was actually punching hard, showing the horrors of war and so on. So, and Ray Fiennes, great actor. Don't know if he won anything for that, but I was hoping did he win Best Supporting? I think his performance in that was really good. I mean, I really hated him in that performance, but at the same time, the reason why I hated him so much was his acting performance was amazing. And so definitely check Schindler's List out. It is not to people's liking. It can be a bit, you know, it is hard to watch because it happened, you know. And then, of course, his other series film was set in the same timeline, was Saving Private Ryan. And I think Private Ryan is another pinnacle in cinema movie, just like Jaws, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park. It was after Saving Private Ryan, you probably noticed after that, every war movie had a distinctive action, more close-up, more frantic, more dangerous. You know, you felt you was in the middle of the action sequences. I mean, straight after that, every other war movie had that kind of Saving Private Ryan kind of feel to it. Because before Saving Private Ryan, there wasn't really much war movies that I liked. I mean, don't get me wrong, you got the classic like Platoon, but there wasn't really a good World War II movie that I liked because I just didn't know. It didn't hit me. But Private Ryan did, because the action sequence, I don't even want to call it action sequence, because it was not really action, because it was, don't get me wrong, I've never been in war, and I don't plan to be in war, so I couldn't tell you if it's realistic, but it felt realistic. I remember watching that in the cinema. And we had surround sound, all that cool stuff, right? And then the visuals of the action, I was actually physically dodging the bullets. That's how good it was, right? Then, of course, I mentioned in my other video, I did the best sci-fi video. I put Minority Report and Ready Player One. I mentioned that already. Then I'm going to start talking about some of the honorable mentions. These kind of like, I wouldn't say lesser film, but not as big ones, so to speak. Like Catch Me If You Can. It was a fun, small film. I really liked it. It's based on a true story again. And Lincoln, I liked it. Wasn't amazing, but Daniel Day-Lewis, what can you say about him? I mean, 3-time Oscar winner, probably one of the greatest actors of all time. War Horse was a weird one, because I watched it first. I was okay, it's not bad. And then I wanted to watch it with a friend again. I didn't actually wanted to watch it a second time, but my friend kind of like pushed me. I was okay, fair enough. Watched it a second time. I actually enjoyed it more second time, so maybe it was just, I don't know, weird. Sometimes you need to watch a film second time to really appreciate, I suppose. And there was one film I felt was really underrated, was Tintin. I actually liked it. Tintin based on a French cartoon or comic I read when I was a kid, and it was meant to be going to be a trilogy. The first one directed by Steven Spielberg, second one by Peter Jackson, and the third one, I can't remember who's going to direct that, but it was supposed to be a trilogy of movies. But I don't think it made that much money or profit, so I think that kind of got canned. So I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was good animation. It's fun. It reminded me of I remember jokingly saying that because it came around a year after, or 2 years after, I can't remember, a year after Indiana Jones 4. And I remember jokingly to my friend and said, Tintin is the real Indiana, was Steven Spielberg's makeup, as in he made up for Indiana Jones 4, because Tintin was more Indiana Jones than Indiana Jones 4 was. So I really enjoyed that. So if you haven't seen Tintin, I would really like it. I mean, recommend it. It's a shame they didn't get a chance to finish off the trilogies and so on. But anyway, I'd like to end this now. Well, not now, but I'm talking about. Just like to say thank you. Please give this video a like. And did you grow up with Steven Spielberg films? Or maybe some of his older films were a bit before your time? But the most important thing I want to ask you is, did you watch Jaws and didn't swim for at least a year or so, or got scared of the sea, like most people of that time? Because I remember I did after I was in knee-high school kid watching Jaws. So scary. I remember, if you buy Jaws now in the UK, it's actually rated 12. But back then there was no 12 certificate. It was actually a PG. So here's me thinking, watching Jaws. Yeah, it was so scary. And like I said, I didn't want to go swimming for a few years. But anyway, I'd like to say thank you, and hope you enjoyed this video. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And please stay safe. Until next time, goodbye.